following is the 2022-2023 Wrestling Rules presentation as developed by the NFHS and adapted by the CWOA. The presentation consists of rule changes, editorial changes, corrections, points of emphasis, and rules reminders. The information provided is appropriate to referees and coaches. Rule changes. The following rule changes have been developed by the NFHS and interpreted by the CWOA under NFHS guidance. This is not the forum to debate your personal opinion of a rule change. If you desire to propose a rule change, detailed instruction on how to do so can be found on the NFHS website. Rule 4-1-1A. Again, this season rule changes have been made in respect to the female competitor uniform. These rule changes are intended to address issues associated with the requirement related to completely covers their breasts and minimizes the risk of exposure. Because of continued compliance issues, officials and state associations across the country began to mandate that all female contestants must wear a compression shirt as part of a legal uniform. That requirement was seriously considered in Colorado. After numerous complaints to the NFHS, this rule has been adjusted so that compression shirts cannot be required unless needed to ensure complete coverage on an individual basis. It is solely the judgment of the game day official as to whether a uniform is legal or illegal. The "we wore this last week and nobody said anything" statement is to have no bearing on the game day official's decision. Competitors riding the line of legal versus illegal might expect varying decisions from competition to competition. Full compliance with completely covers the breast and minimizes the risk of exposure eliminates this scenario. In addition, it is now required that female contestants wear a sports bra regardless the uniform they are wearing. In all uniform combinations, a sports bra will be considered a required component of a legal female uniform. Again, completely covers the breasts and minimizes the risk of exposure is the standard to expect to be achieved. There has been a significant change to Rule 4-2-1. Facial hair is now allowed as long as the skin is visible for medical examination. The requirement of being clean-shaven has been eliminated. This does not mean full beards are allowed. It means facial hair that accommodates a medical examination of the skin is allowed. The legality of facial hair is solely the judgment of the game day official. The "we wrestled with it last week" statement is to have no bearing on the game day official's decision. Contestants pushing the edge of legal and illegal may expect varying decisions from competition to competition. Also, to achieve consistency, the reference to an individual's hair not being abrasive has been removed. An individual would no longer be required to shave the head if hair is abrasive. As stated earlier and shown in these play pics, full beards are illegal. Although somewhat contradictory to a wrestler may not compete until facial hair is trimmed and the skin check is completed, Rule 4-2-1 does allow for wrestlers that do not meet the facial hair requirement to wear a face mask and be allowed to compete. As a reminder, in respect to Rule 4-4-1, Colorado has elected to utilize 14 weight classes for both boys and girls during the 2022-2023 wrestling season. Those weight classes are as listed here and as found on page 19 of the rules book. In respect to the legal female uniform discussed earlier in this presentation, Rule 4-5-7 is specific in requiring female contestants to wear a sports bra that completely covers their breasts and minimizes the risk of exposure while weighing in. It also requires females wearing a compression shirt as part of the legal uniform to weigh in wearing the compression shirt. A change to the penalty for shoe coming off has been implemented and affects the rules and penalty chart as identified on this slide. As stated in Rule 4-1-3, the penalty for shoelaces coming untied and a shoe coming off are both an automatic stalling call. The shoe coming off is no longer a technical violation with an associated injury timeout. Because of the change, Rule 5-24-6D and 7-6-6D have been updated to include shoelaces become untied or shoe comes off as a definition of stalling. And because of the change, in Rules 5-27-1 and 7-3-5, shoe coming off during wrestling action has been removed from the definition of a technical violation. However, Rules 8-1-1, 8-1-2, and 8-1-4 remain the same. Penalties for shoe and shoelace violations before the match starts are to be penalized as a technical violation with a charged injury timeout to correct the deficiency. This would be reporting to the scores table not properly equipped. Although Rule 4-1-3 indicates shoelaces coming untied or shoe coming off to be penalized as an automatic stalling call, Rule 8-1-2 provides an exception to the automatic stalling call. Automatic does not mean immediate. The match would not be stopped to warn or penalized for stalling, including a 2-point stall, if the infraction occurs during any significant action or imminent scoring situations. A wrestler is not to be penalized or to benefit from wrestling being stopped during significant action or imminent scoring situations. Editorial changes. These are changes to the rules or casebook that were missed previously during editing for rule additions or updates. In Rule 3-1-14, HNC timeout has been included in the list of timeouts associated with referees' duties. Rule 5-21-1 has been updated to include 12 and 13 weight classes identified as possible to be used for the random draw. Corrections. Corrections are errors that have been identified in this year's rules or casebooks. There very well may be others, but the following two have been identified at the time of original presentation from the NFHS. The changes to Rules 4-1-3 and 7-3-5 have not been identified by shading. Also, Rule 8-1-2G, listed in the summary of rules, does not exist. It is identified in the rules book as Exception 2 to Rule 8-1-2F. Points of emphasis are associated with recurring issues that are harmful to the overall success of the sport of wrestling. These issues have been identified as requiring extra emphasis to address their negative impact on our sport. Sportsmanship. The original NFHS presentation had 7 full slides addressing sportsmanship or the lack thereof in the sport of wrestling. It's pretty simple. We need to treat each other with respect. Coaches must set a positive example. The excuse, "I'm just fighting for my kids," is just that. It's an excuse to justify unsportsmanlike behavior. Positive communication between officials and coaches is a must to promote sportsmanship. School administration must deal with unruly spectators. The referee should never engage spectators. If the referee has to bring the unruly actions of spectators to the attention of school administrators, the damage has been done, and administration has not fulfilled their responsibility in promoting good sportsmanship. Unsportsmanlike behavior is the #1 reason for our current referee shortage. It is the responsibility of coaches and competitors to know and refrain from using any illegal holds and maneuvers. This slide is a statement from the NFHS in respect to illegal holds and maneuvers. It reads, "We abhor any move, maneuver, or hold that intentionally injures limbs and joints or penetrates any body cavities. Allowing those techniques to infiltrate our sport is irresponsible, dangerous, and in certain jurisdictions, illegal. Regardless of your role as either coach or referee, you must work together to keep certain techniques out of our sport." This slide moves us back to the subject of uniforms, primarily female uniforms. Before the NFHS presentation was published, the CWA intended to have this as our personal point of emphasis for the 2022-2023 season. It is a problem nationwide, and it is as simple as coming into compliance with the requirement that a female uniform must completely cover the breasts and minimize the risk of exposure. Key to this, however, is that standard must be maintained during wrestling action. If the referee becomes uncertain or uncomfortable with the possibility of exposure, then the uniform does not meet the requirement of minimizing the risk of exposure. Also, it is not the responsibility of the referee to ensure wrestlers report to the scorer's table wearing a legal uniform. It is the responsibility of the coach to ensure his or her wrestler reports to the scorer's table properly equipped. Rule 1-2-4. Rules reminders. This slide is a reminder of a rule we were previously made aware of that went into effect on July 1st of this year. It specifies the maximum size of a logo trademark reference to appear on ear guards or hair covering. Note, It has been changed to read once on each cup. These requirements are specific to a manufacturer's logo, trademark, or reference and are not tied to school mascots, stickers, etc. Thank you for viewing the 2022-2023 Wrestling Rules presentation. If you have any questions about information provided, please contact Colorado Wrestling Rules interpreters Rob Ververs or Scott Tarbox. Have a wonderful wrestling season.